I've been driving electric vehicles for over 15 years now, and I've owned 11 of them. I've driven about 400,000 miles in my own personal vehicles, and I've also had the opportunity to at least test drive practically every production electric vehicle made since 2009. So I think I know a little bit about this industry. But there's one thing that I haven't been able to figure out, and that's why electric vehicles have become such a polarizing political topic. Now, I have a guest here today on State of Charge, someone who is one of the most well-known Republican political consultants over the past 20 years. He's worked with some of the top Republican politicians in our country for the past 2 decades. And he shares the same concern about why it seems one side of the country is so pro-EV while the other side is dead set against it. And he's not only concerned about that, he's actually doing something about it. I have a special topic here today, one that has always interested me since I first started getting involved with electric cars 15 years ago, and one that I could never quite understand. But I have an expert here today that's going to try to help me understand. And what we're talking about is how EVs relate to politics. And my guest here today is Mike Murphy. Mike grew up in Detroit. He's a car guy, but he's been in politics his whole life. He's been a Republican campaign consultant to some of the biggest names that you've heard of: Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mitt Romney, Jeb Bush, Christy Todd Whitman here in my state of New Jersey. He's worked on presidential campaigns for McCain, Dole, H.W. Bush, and plus for a ton of senators. So Mike has about as much political experience and clout as anyone. He's also been a pundit for NBC News for 20 years, and he currently runs a podcast. It's called Hacks on Tap with a well-known Democratic political consultant, David Axelrod. So they kind of balance each other out. And Mike is working on something really interesting that I want to talk about here today. First of all, Mike, welcome to State of Charge. Thanks for coming on. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with electric vehicles and then what you're doing now.
Oh, excellent, Tom. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm a fan of State of Charge. You've sold me with your recommendations, helped me choose a couple of level 2 chargers. So I'm a fanatic for it. I live in LA, so I don't have a freezer and I can't reenact the cable test. I'm very jealous about that. But anyway, it's great to be here. Yeah, I ran away from college to join the political circus back when we were all Reagan Republicans. I was a foreign policy guy at Georgetown originally, but I got into this, loved it, had a great run working on all this stuff. And I've always been a car nerd. One of the great things about being a campaign consultant is you get to know all 50 states because you're there doing campaigns and driving all over them and everything. And, I was Captain Ice. I love a big, high-powered engine. My last gas car was a Porsche GTS. I burned up about 7 oil wells worth of fuel. But I could not deny, I started scoffing a little, the jokes would be, my next car, I'm going to see if I can rig it to run on Teslas, blah, blah, or run on hybrids. But the more I learned about the tech and the more I experienced EVs, I became a convert. Fewer moving parts, which is more elegant engineering. They're fast, they're quiet, they're fun to drive. They don't support the house of sod. On every level, they're great. But I become frustrated with kind of the tribalism in politics now. And particularly as an EV nut, all the trash talk and everything from the Republican side on EV. So I decided to do something about it.
That's amazing. And as I mentioned, you're about as hardcore a Republican as there are. And, I think the perception out there is that only left-wing libs go for electric vehicles, right, in some circles at least. And that's simply not true. I have tons of friends that are Republicans that are into electric vehicles, and they might not talk about it as much as some of my other friends do. They quietly drive their EV and they don't want to upset their friends. But this has fascinated me, and I can't understand why this is the case. Because to me, electric vehicles, they're just pro-U.S. Domestic energy, domestic fuel. 100% of the money that we spend on electricity gets reinvested into our local and regional economies. None of it goes to overseas to many of the countries that actually
Right.
hate us. So that always bothered me. But so I never did anything about it really. You're doing something about it now. You
Well,
started
I'm
a new
I'm a
venture.
political hack. So, if I were a tuba player, I'd be sitting in my front lawn blasting out in tuba and the neighbors would be complaining, but I'm from the world of politics. And I'm a never Trumper, so we rent the same secret hall that the EV driving Republicans have. I know what it is like to be an oddball, but what used to be great about being a Republican is you could be an oddball. You could have unfashionable opinions about free enterprise, and maybe we don't need the biggest government, and maybe taxes shouldn't go up every year. So, if you're a free market person who likes choice, the ability to choose what you want in a free market, and you want the better solution, you should be for EVs. Not to mention, the issue about sending billions of dollars every week to people who hate us. So, what I decided to do, and we're officially launching next week, set up an organization called the EV Politics Project, evpolitics.org. We're going to spin off evrepublicans.org off that in a little while. And our purpose is to get over this partisan divide about EVs. So our initial thing, and the website has a lot of content on it, but we've started with a bunch of polling we did. Being campaign consultants, we always want to take a campaign style poll, not so much a market research poll, but a poll to find out where the divisions are, how you move voters, what's going on. So we did a national poll of 600 people, represents about 2/3 of the American electorate. The reason it's 2/3 is we started with a family income of 50,000 and up, which is about 2/3 of voters, because we wanted to touch the new car market too. Because I believe, and the polling verifies this, every marketer, every C-suite executive in the auto companies, be they the European companies, the American ones, to a little bit lesser extent, the Japanese who are not quite as quick to the party, they all see the biggest market problem they have is two things: range anxiety, which is true, it's out there, it showed up in our polling, and price. How can EVs start to be, they're very successful in the luxury market, how do they move down? But there's a third wall, and the cement is hardening, which is the cultural, political wall to EVs. When you have half the market saying there's some reason not to buy an EV that is tribal, you can't give that away. So we got to have strategies to overcome that. So we're going to provide a lot of that IP at evpolitics.org. And we're going to get into the campaign because, unfortunately, you're going to have a lot of Republican politicians. Started over Christmas, one of the senators from Iowa, Republican Joni Ernst, she kind of won the Chutzpah Award, in my view, because she went after the EV subsidies. She's from Iowa, the king of ethanol, which makes the EV subsidies look like a penny on the $10 bill. But anyway, we're going to be pushing back on all that. And finally, I'd say, and we got some data we can show you, one of the interesting opportunities here is the states that have gotten the most billions of dollars in investment for EV factories, charger equipment, batteries, are the same states that are going to decide the presidential election. Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada. They represent 68%, those states, of the electoral college swing vote that'll pick the president. And they're full of EV investment and full of new EV workers. So we're going to organize them and communicate. And we're going to try to have a squelching effect on all this misinformation and kind of cheap applause stuff that's coming out of far too many Republican politicians. So we're looking forward to entering the fight with the facts and try to move the needle here in the right way. And, we're going to be reaching out to the industry to help us.
Interesting. And I mean, I'd start at the factories where all these people are working, all these new
Right.
jobs that are being created. That's another thing that, always surprised me why a certain percentage of the population seem to be against it. With EVs, we have an opportunity to reset the whole global auto balance. Now, China's taking advantage of this, and they're saying we
Yes.
want to be the ones that dominate. It's not too late. We can also have tremendous amount of
Right.
workforce building batteries, refining lithium. How about the linemen, the electrical contractors that we could hire to light up the country with
Right.
charging infrastructure? I mean, this could be like a new deal, where for a decade we have hundreds of thousands of jobs dedicated to this new industry, if not millions. And one of the things I want to correct John a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't not correct you, but talk about range anxiety and that it's real.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this a while, I mentioned that earlier,
Sure.
and range anxiety always was real. And I think that's a term that we should almost retire now. And let
Hmm.
me explain why. There's
Sure.
anxiety. I know there's anxiety, but it's charging anxiety now.
Yeah.
In early on, the EVs that I drove back in 15 years ago only went 70, 80 miles. That was
Mhm.
true range anxiety because you were white knuckled wondering if you were going to get home. Now all the EVs go 250, 300 miles
Right.
or more. So for daily driving, there is no range
Right.
anxiety.
No, I
You're,
agree. Range anxiety is perception is reality. There is no range anxiety in real life.
no,
And,
but
all you got to do
charging,
is turn into your podcast, get a level 2 charger, and you've solved all your range problems for 99% of the people.
of course, but
So,
now when you go on these long trips, Mike, there
yeah.
is anxiety, but it's charging anxiety. It's, is there a charger? Will it
Yeah.
work? How long will it take? That's the new anxiety now, I believe, has transitioned from range anxiety to charging anxiety, but we still use that term range anxiety
Yeah.
because
No, I
it's
agree.
it is anxiety.
Yeah.
And so
No,
so I
I'm
just
with you on this. It's
yeah.
just out in the public, and you're right. We ask them on the polling data, and we'll go to a few charts in a second here, and it's totally out there. But it's driven. Here's one of the most interesting findings we had. If you say you have friends or relatives with an EV, in every category, you're less worried, you're more interested, you're more pro. This is kind of like the the foreign dish that people are afraid to taste, but once they taste it or their friends tell them about it, they instantly want some. And it's kind of that way of charging. I actually, and I wrote about this on Substack. I have a Mike Murphy one. I have a thing there. Being a pundit, I can't shut up. It's mostly about politics, but I write a little EV stuff there. I drove a CCS car, VW ID4, all the way from New Hampshire to Los Angeles, 3,000 miles, because I kind of wanted to see what the charging infrastructure was like. I did it this summer. And, it was not nearly as terrible as you would think reading the internet, but there are some bumps. We all hear about them. But in the polling, the same people who said they had charger anxieties, 70% of them agreed with the question, EVs are the future, and I think eventually I'll drive one once they get the problems worked out. So, what'll solve that is better high speed charging out there, better experiences, because there's pent up demand. You got 70% that think it's in their future, but the speed bump in front of them is their perception about, and I'll use your term, charging anxiety. And,
Yeah.
any marketer knows a good product will solve that, but we got to get people to try them.
Yeah, and charging's improving, and there's a lot of money being
Yeah.
dumped into that now.
Right.
With the new infrastructure deal, let's say, I
Yep.
mean,
Needy. Yep.
tons of money, and also the fact that the industry here in North America is coalescing around a singular plug. And what that's going to do is give
Yeah.
everybody access to every station where we didn't have that in the past. Half the
Yeah.
vehicles could use these, the other half
Right.
could use these. Now everyone's going to be able to use every station, and there's going to be more stations. So that's going to help things. It's not going to immediately solve everything.
No,
We're
but you're right.
talking,
The trend is
yeah,
great.
yeah,
It's
but the
totally great.
trend is
The
great.
fun thing about being a political blabbermouth is all the other political blabbermouths. So I was fooling around with a potential Navy project in New Hampshire, and there's some flaws in that bill. And by the way, I'm proud to say the Republican-run states are the first ones to actually get them up. Mike DeWine in Ohio, the governor, has done. He got the first one working. So as much as the Republican leadership trashes it, you got some good meat and potatoes Republicans that our governors know how to get stuff done. A lot of these states are just even taking the early applications now. They're way behind. But anyway, I got to call Pete Buttigieg's guys and yell at them about it. And to the credit, they are totally dedicated to getting this thing right and getting those chargers built. I was very impressed. I've been dealing with government a long time, and all the right forces are lining up. And as you say, NACS, to get a lot of these barriers out of the way, which is terrific news. We just got to get the message out.
Absolutely. So you said you did some polling. I'd be interested in maybe hearing what the results are on some of those polls.
Sure. Let's take a look at the first slide we have. I think we can cut away to it. And we asked people, and this is accurate of the country. Again, incomes over 50,000, about 2/3 of voters, but all the new car buyers. What's your opinion of the Ford Motor Company? We tested a lot of brands. And the blue circle is Democrats, red circle is Republicans. Independents are they look more like the Democrats, but they're kind of in the middle. And look at the favorables, 77 and 71. Just outside the margin of error, about the same. Unfavorable, 23, 29. Ford's got a pretty good brand. Republicans and Democrats agree. Well, then we tried, what about electric car brands like Rivian, Tesla, Polestar? Bingo, two different planets. Look at Republicans, 9% mostly favorable, 49% mostly unfavorable. That's a 40-point deficit. Republicans and a lot of Democrats, the numbers are a little lower because the brands like Rivian or Lucid are not as well known. But there you go. The Democrats are 15 points more positive than negative. The Republicans are 40 points more negative, which means between the two parties is a 65-point gap. So the Republicans, a lot of Republicans, too many, electric cars are like a tobacco company brand. They don't want to be part of it. Well, over on the Democratic side, they're in business and they're growing fast. So we took another look. We can go to the next slide. I think we're going to slide one. So this is we gave them three choices. Are you seriously interested in buying an EV in the next year or two? Or is your opinion, I might buy an EV once all the problems are worked out and the prices are a bit lower, or I'll probably never buy an EV. Democrats, you can see 74% of them are either into it now or when things get easier, less of that charger anxiety, they're open for business. So they're ready to go. Look at Republicans, 44%, I'll probably never buy one. They're only 56% open. Only half as many as Democrats want to buy one in the next year or two. So if I'm in the industry, I want to know why this is and how to do it. So we have some answers for that. If we go to the next slide, this is a fun question. If you bought an EV, what would your best friends and relatives think about that? You made a smart move. You took a big risk. You spent too much money and you're becoming too political. If you're a Democrat, you think 61% of your friends are going to tell you made a smart move. You're Republican, it's only 19. Big gap. And too big a risk, about half the Republicans say that, only a quarter of the Democrats. Spent too much money, Republicans, by 20 points are more likely to say spent too much money. And while it's not a huge number, which is, a good sign, it's still twice as many Republicans as Democrats think your friends will all say you're becoming some kind of liberal politician, riding a Biden mobile around. So this is out there and it's it's tricky. So that's why I think there's a lot of work for us to do. One more chart I think we got to look at is number 8, which is a couple down. We can shoot to that one. It's the one that says no more gas and yes. So we ask people, what's the best reason to own an EV? Is it never paying for gas? Is it good for the environment? You get money from the government. The new technology is interesting. Sends a positive message about me, and my values. And finally, for the grumps, there are no good reasons to ever buy an EV. So look at Republicans. 54% say gas. Democrats, 59% say gas. Independents, 53%. Even people who are favorable to Donald Trump, the most hardcore Republican kind of populist, 44%. They agree on what they like. They're the same. The difference is, look at good for the environment, the third one there. 33% of Republicans, 60% of Democrats. And this question, they get to pick two on a list. So it's combined. That little minus 11 under Democrats on not paying for gas versus the plus 19 on Republicans is first choice, second choice. So first choice for Republicans by 19 points is never paying for gas. First choice with Democrats by about 11 points is the environment. The Republicans don't give a damn about buying a green car for the environment. In fact, they think the Democrats are pushing it on them. Well, the Democrats are all green. The auto industry needs to know they get the green thing for free. It's already there. They don't have to spend a nickel advertising. It's like telling people ice cream is cold. They need to explain to the Republicans, who, by the way, are more than half the buying population at $50,000 a year or more, slightly more than half, that they're fast, they're quiet, and you don't pay for gas, you get a subsidy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You got to go to them where they are and not give them a lecture on the environment. You may want to. My Democrat friends all do. They want to duct tape me to a chair and straighten me out. I tell them, you already got me. I'm in an EV. But that's not how you move the iron with these things. It's product attributes that are the difference, and price, which is coming down. But as you inferred earlier, The future is going to be electric vehicles. We got to decide if they want to have made in China stamped on them and give up the American leadership of the auto industry, with close Japanese competition we've had for 70 years. I don't think we want to give that up for America. I don't think we want to lose our manufacturing base. But we got to go to this half of the market on their terms, and we can sell a lot of EVs.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I remember, geez, 10 or 11 years ago when Nissan first brought the Leaf out, maybe 12 years ago at this point, their big commercial on it was like this polar bear walking from the polar ice cap to like a city, and how we're saving the polar bears, and he hugs a guy at the end. And
Right,
I wrote a big article back then saying this is a disaster. This is
right.
not what you need to market this vehicle. You need to talk about how compare it to other Nissans, like in that same price range, the instant torque, the quiet, smooth drivetrain,
Right,
the low operating costs, the fact that you never have to go back to a dealership for maintenance, just
right.
tires, wiper blades, unless, I mean, if it breaks, you have to bring it back. Everything's going to break and need maintenance, but there's no regular service maintenance intervals. So that's where we really need to market this stuff. Yeah, Martin pulled that up.
If we're not careful, if they ever do that again, our friends at Fox News are going to get a real polar bear and ask somebody to get in a cage for a hug, and it's going to turn out very badly. That is not good marketing.
Yeah, no, listen, it's frustrating when I see that people are targeting the car manufacturers are targeting the wrong points. As you said, they already have the environmental.
Right,
That don't spend another second on it. Talk about all the other reasons and the reasons why I drive an EV. I didn't get into electric vehicles for environmental reasons. That's an added benefit to me. I did it because I was
right,
always a car guy, and the instant torque and how fast and fun they were to
right.
drive. That's what hooked me. And it's frustrating. So okay, so now you're starting this EV politics project.
Yeah.
Did a bunch of polling. Um, what's next steps? How do you how can you move the needle? Because I'm interested. It's almost as if that information that you pulled out on the polls, you have to do polls to
Right,
prove your theory. But I almost could have wrote the answers 3 years ago because
right.
I've been living this, listening to my Republican friends tell me I'm wasting my time and it's a joke, and I'm
Right.
not doing EVs are worse for the environment. The battery's going to die in a year and all this stuff. So I know what the opinions are, but how do you move the needle with this organization?
Well, in campaigns, we break it down with polling. We don't really want to know who's ahead. We want to take people's heads apart so we know what new information we can give them to move them. That's what every campaign is. It's about what new information goes to who. So you go make the argument. So we need to do more research. We got a lot more polling, but I don't want to gum up the interview here with too much of it. We're going to post a lot of it on evpolitics.org, and we're going to make our rounds to the industry. But then we got to do the politics of it. So I'm going to show you two things quickly. If we shoot down to the Elon Musk chart, this is just an interesting thing where Elon, for some, is a headache, for others, a savior. As we know, he's the original. He gets more credit than anybody for kind of mass adoption of modern electric vehicles, but he's become more of a conservative. So he's now a polarizing figure. It would worry me if I were the CMO at Tesla. When we ask people, Elon Musk is a good ambassador for electric vehicles, 2/3 of Democrats disagree with that. They don't like Elon anymore. And that's where the core EV market has been. I mean, hadn't had those Republicans who are always saying, I'll never buy, or I don't like EVs. 2-1, they think Elon's great. So Elon could be the key to unlock some of these folks, but they're not going to ask him to hang around many Tesla dealerships now. So if we shoot to the final chart I've got, which shows where all the investment is going, because politically, in the hard world of politics, we'll go down to the one with the state maps, if we could, which is down one or two more. And it shows basically, so these are of the top 10 states for investment in those battery factories, in those assembly factories. Many of them are swing states. The presidential election is really only about 2 million people because of the Electoral College, who are the fulcrum voters in a couple of states. Interestingly enough, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada are about 5 of the big 7 states. They cast, just those states that are full of new EV jobs, new EV investment, billions. They cast 68% of the deciding votes in the Electoral College. So we're going to go organize that. And we're going to make it harder for Republican politicians to attract EVs because we want to make it the same as going to my hometown of Detroit and attacking, the V8 engine. So we're going to go out and organize. We're going to have a big digital presence. We have a lot of ideas. And of course, we're shamelessly going to do visibility with merchant stuff. And I'm sending you one of these. I own an EV. I like it. And I vote. Hats, T-shirts. We got all that stuff because we want people to feel visible and be active as voters to go out and do their thing and stand up for EVs and the EV supply chain in America.
That's great. I will proudly put that sticker on one of my EVs. I have 3 EVs, and I'll wear. You showed me a T-shirt. I think it was a T-shirt that you had. I think I'll wear one of those for
Yeah,
sure.
we'll send you a whole crate of this.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, this is going to be big in Milan with the models here, and we have EV Republicans too. So it's all coming. It's all going to be at. I'll plug it again. evpolitics.org or evrepublicans.org, and we're excited. We're going to engage the battle.
That's great, and I will put links in the description of this video. I know your websites aren't live yet, but this is going to take me a few days to put out. So I'll probably wait until the website's live to publish this video.
Next week, by the time the video's done, it'll be up. We're just
next week. Yes,
weeks.
For me, I got a lot going on. I'm not sure if I'll get it out.
Right,
but
CES
at some point, really soon. Yeah, I'll be out CES probably when this airs. So, I have a question for you. So, I always knew this was an issue. And have you ever have you had run-ins with your fellow Republicans over electric vehicles? Or because I have. It's crazy. I remember one time I had just got my F-150 Lightning, my Ford F-150 Lightning electric pickup truck. I'm in a parking lot of a Home Depot. And I park the truck, I get out, and I start walking toward the store, and all of a sudden I hear, hey. So I turn around because it sounded like it was coming in my direction. I look, and there's a guy standing next to his truck. He also has a Ford pickup truck. And a lot of people ask me questions about my vehicles. Oh, is that electric? How far does it go? Do you like it? Whatever. So he's like, is that the electric Ford? And I said, yeah. And he went like, he goes, yeah, you probably can't drive that out of, more than 10 miles in the winter. And I looked at him and I said, well, actually, I just came back from a 500-mile round trip to Vermont. And he goes, yeah, you had to stop like 10 times. And I was like, actually, I didn't have to stop at all. Oh, I did stop once, but that was to go to the bathroom and I didn't charge. Right. And he had a couple of words that I can't stay online now. And I just turned around, smiled, said, have a good day, and walked away. And, and as I'm walking away, I'm saying to myself, why would somebody feel the urge to do that? And he had the American flag sticking out of the back of his truck, and he had stickers on the back of his truck that indicated he wasn't happy with the outcome of the last election. It's like, it just drives me crazy when people the guy probably assumes that I'm some, tree hugging, sandal wearing, tofu eating, total lib that, believes in open borders. And there's not that anything's wrong with that. Live life the way you want to live life. But believe it or not, I'm actually a registered Republican. I've been my whole life. Most people don't realize that. I keep it out of really what I do. But I've always voted in the Senate, and I voted for both parties. I've always voted for the individual, not the party. And I'm having a hard time with how far right the Republican Party's gone these days. And it's difficult for me to understand that. But, I haven't switched, and I might go to independent, but I'm keeping my Republican affiliation now, at least so I can vote in primaries and everything, and hopefully affecting a change. But have you had instances like that where your fellow Republicans have been like, Mike, why are you driving that stupid thing? Don't you know that's a Biden mobile?
Yeah. I've been gently mocked by a few friends that Murphy hit his head and turned into an. Remember the old Mike? But it's most of my gearhead friends back in Detroit. Kind of, and some of them are in the industry, kind of look each way and say, elegantly engineered, they're better machines, but I can't really say that. And I've gotten a few dirty looks, but part of it was me. I've been anti-Trump since the Whitman days when he was down in stiffing everybody in Atlantic City. So I'm on TV a fair amount as a pundit on NBC, and I'm tough on Trump. So I get a little of that too. And when they see I'm driving an electric car, their head really explodes because you're right. They think I'm in a conspiracy. Because our politics now, to our great national loss, is I'm right, you're evil. It's not you're wrong. It's not let's talk about it. It's your evil. So you're the tribal enemy. And if Biden likes electric cars, they've got to be terrible. You got to be a traitor to drive one. It's stupid tribalism. And
Yeah,
it's the problem with our American politics. And if we don't get that fixed, we all better learn Chinese, by the way.
and
It is a real problem.
everybody forgets that George Bush is the one that initiated the federal tax
Yes.
credit for electric vehicles. Everybody
Yeah.
assumes it was Obama because it really started during the Obama administration. Well, that's when the EV started coming. But
Right.
but before he was president, Bush is the one that signed it into law or created that the initial
Right.
electric vehicle tax credit. So it wasn't political until the last 7 or 8 years. It seems like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's been bothering me ever since I got into electric vehicles. Why and why do you think that's happened? Do you think it's because as you just mentioned, if I like something and I'm on the other side of the aisle, you have to hate it. Is that is
Right.
is that
Right.
really what it's come down to now, or is
Yeah.
it
No,
more because the mandates? I know the government mandates I don't like, where we're saying we're going to ban combustion by this date or whatever. I've never supported those.
Yeah, no, exactly. And very few people do. It's a free country, and driving an EV ought to be part of that. What it is people are, because it's so tribal, you're not an opponent, you're an enemy.
Mhm.
And if you're driving an EV, you're part of the whole conspiracy. You stole the election. Now, this isn't the whole country. It isn't even all Republicans, but there's enough of a populist chunk there. It's about 40% of the Republican primary electorate. And they kind of get energy because it sure makes your life simple when you have a little rule book that if they're wrong on this one issue, they're wrong on everything. And you're supposed to flip them off in the parking lot or honk on them. Or in some states, you see the green paint in the charging station. You go pull your ICE vehicle in and you leave it there for 3 hours because, I got them. They can't charge that Biden mobile now. Oh, I'm a real warrior. I'm a patriot. And that psychology, which is very high school and stupid, is out there. But what we know from this poll is when they talk about the attributes, they like it. And they, again, even among the Republicans, more than half say it's the future and one day I'll probably drive one. And if we can get the EV world to 60% of Republicans and just about 80% of everybody else, we've won. So that'll move the culture. And nothing works like using them or peer to peer. If I were Ford and I had a couple hundred extra Lightnings, I would pick about 50 to 80 dealers in the right places. And I'd say, start losing money on 1-year leases just to get people, let them put 10,000 miles on one, then we'll do it again for another 10,000, get people to touch and try.
100%.
I think this new
Yeah.
Ram Series Hybrid will be a big number mover too. And so we got to get the products out there, got to get people to try them and talk to each other and push back on the BS, which is there's going to be a lot of in the election year. And we're going to be in the front line of doing that.
I've always advocated for having the EV experience dictate whether you like them or not. And it's easy to hate them from 50 feet, but when you actually drive one, live with one for a while. I always said Elon years ago should have sent a Tesla Model S to Congress, 100 of them to Congress, and said these are free for all of Congress to drive around town. And see if their minds change. And I actually did a small thing like that recently when I got my Lightning last year. As I mentioned, I live in a rural part of New Jersey, very red here. All my friends drive pickup trucks. It's a farming area. There's farms, there's horses right down the block from me. All my friends have pickup trucks. So I gave 5 of my friends, I let drive my F-150 Lightning, and at the time I had a Rivian R1T pickup truck. I had the 2 electric pickup trucks. Mm-hmm. I let 5 of my friends each drive each one for 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. These are guys that laughed at me that I was getting an electric pickup truck. And 4 out of the 5, when we were done, were like, I want one of these. Can I get one now? And they couldn't, because at the time, that's when the Rivian and the Lightning just launched, and they weren't available to purchase. One of the guys put an order in online for a Chevy Silverado EV. He still has that reservation. And these are guys that were like, no, I can't get a pickup truck, not an electric pickup truck. Now, the 5th one, the one that was a holdout, is admittedly a real strong far-right Trump supporter that, has really kind of believes a lot what he hears on the far-right news sites and blogs. And he has a big farm, and he said, well, this would never work for me. I need to haul hay and do this. And even though I know what he does, and I know it would work. He doesn't tow
Yeah.
for hundreds and hundreds of miles. It's all New Jersey driving and stuff, and it would work.
Right.
But I think it's just, he's in that tribalism, that polarization where, listen, they like it, so I can't like it. I can't agree
Right.
that this would
Right.
work for me.
Giving up all your free choice and your
Yeah,
brain power, you become basically a chimpanzee at that point,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is crazy. I've always thought if I were for it, I'd give Hannity a lightning.
yeah,
You know, I'll bet because it works. I
yeah.
would again. I was a Porsche guy burning up gallons.
Mhm.
I drove a BMW iX around for an hour. The Porsche was on a truck an hour later.
So,
I
so
love that car. I have it
when
now.
I have a great story really quick though. When I got
Yeah,
my
sure.
first EV back in 2009, it was a Mini Cooper. It was an electric Mini Cooper. I was in a
Oh
pilot
wow.
program with BMW. My daily driver was a Porsche Boxster.
Yeah, sure.
And I got this little Mini Cooper, all electric. 3 months later, I sold the Boxster.
Yeah,
I was like, it just
yeah.
sat in the garage. I was like addicted to driving this little electric Mini Cooper. It was fantastic. So the driving experience is what hooked me more than anything. But
Totally, and the elegant engineering, and I'll
yeah,
tell you, the reverse side of the guy driving by with the jacked up truck and the Trump flag giving you a dirty look. I get to do a wild, maniacal laugh every time I drive by a gas station in LA with $6 a gallon gas. I sound like the Joker. I'm very happy.
yeah. Well, I did something similar to that back in, I think it was 2011. Hurricane Sandy hit the East
Mhm.
Coast,
Oh yeah,
and it just wiped out everything. And everyone says, "Well, what did you do during that?" You had to charge your electric car. I was charging my car just fine because there were pockets of electricity available, but there was
hmm
no gas because all the gas
right.
pumps need electricity to pump. And the lines, there were hundreds of people standing on line with gas cans, and I was just driving by. I
Yeah,
even loaned my EV to all my friends because they're like, I can't get gas. I need to pick up
right.
my mom. I was here. Come take the electric car.
Oh wow.
And I was actually in the New York Times did a full page article on me and had a big picture of me driving my car with all the gas lines and everything. But I digress. Listen, I know you have limited time here today. This was fantastic, Mike. I really appreciate you coming on. I wish you luck with this venture. Hopefully, we could reconnect in the future. Maybe do a follow
Sure,
up once you've been doing this for a few months, or maybe in the summer. Maybe as
sure.
the elections ramping up, we could talk about what you've been doing, what progress you've had. And I wish you luck on this because this is a topic that has baffled me since I've been driving my EVs. It's been so hard for me to understand why more people don't understand why. Well, I won't say more people. I'll come out and say it, why Republicans don't understand
Yeah,
that electric vehicles are good for the country. And
yeah.
that it's been something that's baffled me, and I'm so happy that you in the political sphere, which I'm not, are decided to take this on and try to enact change and make a difference.
It's a good fight. We got the facts on our side, and I think our next bumper sticker will be EV Patriot, which will really drive them crazy. But that's the argument, and we can hardly wait. So thanks for having me on my favorite YouTube channel in the electric space. I've become a nut for L2 chargers. So keep up your good work because you're a great ambassador for the cause here.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. And we will reconnect and do a follow up at some point in the future. I want to see what your progress has been.
All right. Thank you, pal.